key missions. A commitment to show an unfiltered view of the before, during, and after of key events live as it happens. To defend the First Amendment using our rights of a free press. And to amplify the voices of underrepresented individuals including Black, Indigenous, persons of color, and the LGBTQIA+ community. Our team is committed to seeking equality for all and holding those in power accountable. The easiest way to support Malcontent News is to bookmark our website at malcontentnews.com, like and follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and in the Google News app. To provide financial support, you can become a patron, make a one-time donation through Venmo, or link your Twitch account to your Amazon Prime account and use your free subscription to subscribe to Malcontent News. Thank you for supporting independent journalism and for being a malcontent. Good evening, Malcontents. My name is David. I am the Malcontent. Today is January 25th, Monday, 2021, and we have a lot to cover tonight. Let me pull in our co-host, Jennifer Smith. Jennifer, how are you doing this evening?
I'm tired but good. How are you?
I'm tired but good also. Yoda the Wonder Pug only allowed me about 3.5 hours of sleep last night. I should sleep like an infant tonight.
Yeah. Pugs are really bad about that. Even mine's a little bit younger, but he's still like up and down all the time. So
yeah, when you're the equivalent of almost 100 years old in human years, and you have doggy dementia, you have to be a patient soul.
Yes, absolutely.
And he is still a good little bugger. He actually, Jennifer, he had a total winning moment today. So as you know, we have almost all in-house content tonight, which we love, but that also means a lot of editing. And so I went to push him outside, and pugs are stubborn. You can't make me go to the bathroom. And I was like, okay, fine. I'm not going to leave you downstairs. I'm going to keep you up in my lap up in the studio. And of course, he was like, that was my plan all along.
Sounds about right.
Exactly. So with that, Jennifer, why don't we start with the land acknowledgement, and we're going to go ahead and jump in the show. I'll roll the clip, and then you can do your thing.
Okay.
Take it away, Jennifer.
Okay, so we at Malcontent News are coming to you from Seattle, Washington, and we would like to acknowledge the Coast Salish peoples of this land, the land which touches the shared waters of all tribes and bands within the Puyallup, Muckleshoot, Duwamish, Suquamish, Tulalip, and Tulalip nations, and really make sure that they know that we appreciate being able to live and work on this land.
Jennifer, thank you so much for that. Really appreciate it. It is important that we do that. Jennifer, we said on Thursday we were hoping for a quiet news cycle. We had a quiet news cycle out of Washington, D.C., but we certainly did not have a quiet news cycle out of Puget Sound.
No, we did not. It's been really crazy over the weekend. And like Saturday night, our news thing was going off all night long. Definitely some stuff going on and stuff to talk about.
And with that, I think we're going to jump into it and start talking about it.
Okay.
So the first thing I want to start off with is there is the video. We have the video on our Twitter feed. We have that video on the Facebook page. We are not going to air that video tonight. It is extreme. It is a horrible video to watch. If you're for some reason going, wait a minute, what are you talking about in Tacoma? You can go to our Twitter. You can go to our Facebook page, and you can go ahead and look at that there. So what happened in Tacoma in like 30 seconds or less? There was what is called a sideshow. So you could think of it as, it's not street racing, but you could think of it as an exhibition of burnouts and doing donuts. And in car culture, particularly on the West Coast, this is something that is pretty common all up and down the West Coast. There was a street exhibition that was going on at 9th and Pacific in downtown Tacoma. Multiple calls came in for the police. Police started to arrive, potentially to make arrests or certainly to break up what was going on. A crowd of people moved around one of the police cruisers, and then disaster ensued. The officer revved their engine, drove at a significant high rate of speed through this group of pedestrians, two to the hospital, one with minor injuries. We'll get into that in a moment, and another with more serious injuries. Both are out of the hospital. The officer involved is suspended, and there's been a lot of fallout, Jennifer, in the last 72, it's not even 72 hours. It's 48 hours almost to the minute. It feels like a lot longer.
Yeah, it really does. And it's, gone national too, which I find particularly interesting. But this is somebody who's a 30-year veteran police officer. This isn't, a younger, inexperienced police officer. So I think there's a lot of really interesting and important questions that need to be asked about what happened and why he felt it necessary to take that action. Yeah,
the 58-year-old, he's been identified. His name is Con Fan. I hope I'm getting his first name right, and I appreciate patient or not. It's Khanh. So I don't know if that's a Ka or Khan. Almost 30 years on the force, and Jennifer up for retirement in just a few months.
Yeah, that's what I was reading the other day, and I don't know. I mean, some serious questions need to be answered about what happened. And there's been so much speculation, especially on social media, that it's really something that they need to come forward with what information that they have to kind of quiet some of that misinformation.
Yeah, there is. And it's funny, that's a good tee up. We talked today with Quinn Bell. Quinn Bell was an eyewitness to this incident that happened on Saturday with the Tacoma Police Department. And Jennifer, I'm going to go ahead and tee up that interview with Quinn. We're with Quinn Bell. Quinn was an eyewitness to the incident with the Tacoma Police Department where a group of pedestrians were struck at 9th and Pacific. Quinn, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Quinn, in your own words, can you tell us what you saw and observed on Saturday night?
So I was up on the second floor in a parking garage looking from kind of a bird's eye view away from everything. But I could see everything that's going on. And the cop pulled up, which is very common. We go from spot to spot all night. And every spot that gets blown up is blown up by a police officer pulling up, just like that one did. They pull up, people get in front of the cop, block him so that their friends or colleagues, whatever you want to call them, can get away without getting arrested. And we go to the next spot. This happens. It's been happening for decades. And so if you see my video, I'm recording and I go, yeah, blockers. Because, I've seen it happen 1,000 times, And this time I watched this police officer just run over a group of people. I don't know how else to explain it. It was insane. And when usually they only block until the racers are gone. They would have backed away within 45 more seconds. I've seen it 1,000 times, man.
There's a lot of rumors about what happened on Saturday, and you were there as an eyewitness. And so one of the first rumors I want to talk about is that the people had gone around the car, broke out the rear window. That's why he couldn't back up and that's why he drove that way. Fox News and the Tacoma police reported very early Sunday morning that the window of the cruiser wasn't broken and that this was a totally different police cruiser that showed up with the broken back window.
Absolutely. I can actually send you my video. I have a video of the back of the car as it drives away, completely undamaged. The window is fine. The car that pulled up after, I mean, about easily, no exaggeration, 40 to 50 squad cars were there within 3 minutes. I've never seen a response like that in my life. But that's when those cars started pulling up. People started throwing things at those cars. I mean, they had just witnessed their friend get ran over, not ran over by the front and back wheel of this vehicle. I've never seen anything like that in person. You know what I mean? It's like, it's shocking when you see that in person. And like I said, if I wasn't in my bird's eye view, I would have been hitting the police cars too, man. I can't believe what I had just seen. I mean, it was rage.
Another rumor that's going out there is that there was a stabbing related to this and people were blocking the police cruiser so that they couldn't get to the stabbing. I'm just telling you what the rumors are, Quinn.
Hey, I believe it. I believe that that's a rumor, but I can personally guarantee that that did not happen. I mean, these are car people, you know car people. I mean, they might be younger and not the smartest car people, but they're car people. They're not violent people.
Quinn, another rumor that's out there is that people were laying down in front of the police cruiser to block it. From your vantage point, could you tell us what you saw?
Absolutely not. I mean, there was no Tiananmen Square moment on 9th and Pacific Avenue. I mean, no, these people are car people. They're not looking for trouble. They're just waiting for their friends to get away. It was more of a 3-minute. It's exciting. You realize you have the power to block a police officer. I've never done it, but I'd imagine that must be pretty exciting, and that's all that was, just screaming out of excitement. You've seen the video, they're laying on the car, laughing, whatever. Nobody was laying down and even if they were still, they're just trying to block somebody from going. Why would that make it okay to run them over? If anything, that makes less sense. You know what I mean?
Quinn, I really appreciate you coming on and telling us what you saw on Saturday. And we will continue to monitor the story and see what happens and what the Tacoma Police Department decides to do with the officer involved in this incident.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for being an unbiased news reporter, man. We appreciate people like you.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for that shout out, Quinn. Much appreciated. Jennifer, it was really great at the end of that interview to get that because you were watching the stream and, we took shit from both sides yesterday. Yeah. Everybody was mad at us yesterday.
Yep.
Which I always say that means we're doing our job right.
Yeah. It's been interesting, the comments and messages we've gotten over the past couple of days since this has happened. And I sent a message this morning. I was like, wow, these have gotten really intense. So it's definitely like a high friction incident and people are feeling all kinds of ways about it. But it's so useful to have an eyewitness account of what happened, especially to kind of maybe help quash some of the kind of theories people have about what happened.
Yeah, it was amazing to me. This is a terrible incident, so I'm not trying to minimize it, but it was about 11 o'clock West Coast time, and someone sent us a link going, hey, this is on Daily Mail in the UK, right? It's like, well, this now just became international news. The Tacoma Police Department created an international incident.
Yes. Yeah, it's insane how quickly it traveled. It was just all over the place. CNN, it was on MSNBC. I was watching it on a news show the following morning. So there was so much kind of speculation about what happened and, kind of instant attachment to this as a story. And I think so much of that is largely the result of the way in which Seattle, in the Seattle area, Portland has been portrayed as this kind of anarchist space on fire by the media for so long.
Yeah, Quinn actually was interviewed by the BBC the night of. So again, I'm not minimizing it. It's just with everything that's going on in the world. Yeah. I'm very fascinated that this story has taken on the life that it has.
No, and I think it's interesting too to think about the ways in which different kinds of stories have intensified now that we don't have a particular person in office and people are really looking for something that's not coming from his fingertips on Twitter that they can transform into a story. So other things that seem more interesting or anything at this point are just becoming instantly intensified.
Yeah, exactly. And this went from zero to political within 2 hours. Yes. Katie Davis Court, we have up in our story with her comment that it was deserved. Hey, yes. Katie, if you were in the Capitol or close to the Capitol grounds and your cell phone was on, the FBI knows about you, Katie. I noticed you didn't respond to my reply there, Katie, on that one. Feeling a little nervous, Katie? You should. Mm-hmm. We have some more information, Jennifer, the Cubs. Tavon Williams is the second individual, the more seriously injured individual. Tavon gave an interview to Como, and in that he said, I quote, "I don't think it was an accident at all." He goes on to say, "I don't think it was malicious, but the officer probably got frustrated and made himself judge and jury."
That's a really powerful statement. I mean, really. I we've only seen video. We're not there. We of course had somebody that was their first person account, but I just don't see in any context how that is warranted in any capacity. So I just don't have. There's no way to really play devil's advocate here. I see a lot of people trying to do it on social media, but the fact of the matter remains a police officer literally ran through a crowd of protesters and ran his vehicle over someone.
Well, and let's remember, they weren't even protesters. They're just a crowd of people that, I mean, Quinn explained what their motivations were. Tacoma at this moment is holding an emergency meeting of their police advisory board. So obviously, not only probably the incidents of Saturday night, but the incidents of Sunday night, we'll get into that later in the show, are probably hot topics in that meeting. If there's any news that comes out on that, we will try to share it tonight on Twitter and on our Facebook. If there's something really big that comes out, we'll put it up on Malcontent News. The other one is Matthew Harrington self-identified as the other on social as the other individual that was struck. And Matthew's actually basically taking the position that he deserved it. I'm paraphrasing very heavily, but he has kind of this attitude to it.
That's interesting. Any rationale behind why he believes he deserved it? I didn't see that. I
think the Mopar Blue Lives Matter motif sign that he has up where he lives might have something to play with it.
Okay, so
maybe
political ideology playing in there.
Yes. So we will continue to monitor this story. We are really committed to making sure that this is told in an accurate fashion. We did not release our story on the Malcontent News site until we could kind of get our hands around things. And I know that our fact checkers and our community manager could tell you, I spent hours today scouring, like I'm trying to get the real story because there's so many stories coming out around this. The other thing, Jennifer, I'll just close, which was kind of frustrating for me, is we had people from the political right, going, that window was broken out by them. And we're like, the Tacoma police had a press conference at 12:30 in the morning. It's on Fox freaking News that there's no damage to the cruiser, right? It's like, what do you want from us?
And what's particularly interesting is that started circulating really quickly after the story kind of gained traction. That was the kind of alter narrative that came out of that.
I get to hit the Chud button.
Chud. It's a
yes, please.
Humanoid underground dweller.
Hey, Chuds, those pictures that you've circulated around and misrepresented of the broken back window, yeah, they're from CNN. Look it up. I knew you would love that, Jennifer. Man. That was just for you. Oh, I missed. I get to do it again because it landed in a bad spot. It can't stay there. Let me try it again. I get a second try. All right, there we go. Get a do-over. I didn't call this out. We are going to do for a pause for the cause, but I did start with this. There's just so much going on tonight. Our moderators, our admins, our researchers, they all work for Hearts. There's only, we can't say nobody's paid around here anymore. It's sure not me and it's sure not Jennifer, but there is one person that we've actually got to pay for the first time. So we can't say nobody's paid anymore, but almost nobody is paid to do what they do here. We're paid in hearts. And so with that said, what you could do, if you're on Facebook, if you're on Twitter, if you're on Periscope, spam those hearts. Let people know that you appreciate the hard work that everybody does here, particularly our mods and admin team, so that Jennifer and I don't have to see the worst of the worst comments. The other thing is, if you haven't done it, like, share, follow, subscribe, share. Also, if you're on YouTube or if you're on Twitch and you're like, I can't spam hearts. You could just type something like, I love you mods, or I love Malcontent, or I love Jennifer, and big line of hearts or something like that. We love that stuff. And Jason, by the way, thank you for your thank you on our coverage on Tacoma. Jennifer, with that, we'll do a little pause for the cause, and we're going to go ahead and jump into the next story. Hi, Malcontents. I'm David, the Malcontent, and I'd like to talk to you for a moment about supporting independent media. When you support us, you help us bring the before, during, and after. You help us defend the First Amendment. You help us amplify BIPOC and LGBTQIA voices, and you help us hold leaderships at a local, state, and federal level accountable. None of this would be possible without support by viewers just like you. When you become a patron for as little as $5 a month, you help buy technology, safety equipment, and help cover travel expenses so that we can continue to bring you news that you trust. If you can't become a patron, you can do a one-time donation on Venmo, and your dollars will go to the exact same causes. With your continued support, we can continue to amplify BIPOC and LGBTQIA voices while showing the truth on what is happening in the world around us. Once again, thank you. Jennifer, thank you for bringing this story to us. I'll go ahead and let you take it from here.
We did an interview on Friday with somebody who works in, her name is Elise Barrett. She works in the medical field and has tons of wonderful information about COVID that she was kind enough to share with us. And so she's going to talk a little bit about the vaccine, how the ways in which we're kind of like not seeing the flu, but the significance of that as well in the context of COVID. And she just gives us tons of really great information that I think will help answer some of these big lingering questions that a lot of us have about COVID.
Yeah, I can make it happen.
Hey, Malcontents, this is Jennifer, and I'm here today with Elise Barrett, who's going to share some of her knowledge about what's going on with COVID. Hey, Elise, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really good. I've had a lovely day, and it's Friday, so I get to go home after this.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you for being with us today. What are some of the things that you're kind of witnessing during this epidemic that people should be kind of aware of what's going on?
It's definitely not a hoax. I have many family members who live in areas where it is sort of considered a political opinion whether this exists or not. And unfortunately, this weekend I discovered that my mother and her husband have COVID and are looking at potentially a pretty rocky course in the disease. So it's been a difficult thing for this last year, seeing my patients be affected by it, seeing my staff dodge it through. We have not had one infection on my unit, but we've had incredibly tight lockdowns and been very diligent in keeping ourselves protected and seeing the difference that following the science and listening to what's being told makes and not getting it.
What are some of the most frustrating, myths that you deal with surrounding COVID?
First myth is that you have to lock yourself in your house and never go outside and never interact with another human and be living in fear. That sort of creates a degree of tension and dread and almost fatalism that's impossible to sustain. You can't live like that in your house alone without suffering great harm to your mental health. And fortunately, we've had a lot of work done by experts in the field to tell us how we can interact with each other safely and how we can be out of our houses and how to avoid catching the disease while we're just trying to spend some time with friends. Unfortunately, that does involve distance. It involves wearing what we call personal protective equipment, PPE, or masks, which, of course, in the nursing field and medicine, that's old news. We've been doing that forever. We know how effective it is. But that's still a new concept for a lot of people, and there's a lot of fear around it for a lot of people because it is tied to this concept of being medical, being rigid, maybe being under a doctor's care, having to follow orders.
Can you tell us a little bit more about where the flu is in all of this? We hear so much about COVID, but we don't have an understanding of what's going on with the flu right now.
Well, the flu is less contagious than COVID. So anything that stops the spread of COVID even a little is going to impact the spread of flu much more. We've actually seen a significant amount of flu in the community, mostly among people who are still getting out and around and moving in the community. We've actually seen a much lower prevalence in the older community and the populations that typically make up most of the casualties of flu season, simply because those people are scared to death of COVID and being smart and staying in their houses. So if you're wearing a mask during flu season, you're actually pretty well protected against flu. It's not as easy to catch it as it is to catch COVID. It requires a much higher viral load, and those little viruses are much bigger. If you're wearing a mask and somebody breathes COVID on you, you could still catch it. They're very small viruses, and it doesn't take much getting through to make you sick. So if you're protecting yourself against COVID, you're protecting yourself against the flu.
And getting a flu vaccine, of course, is also kind of helpful should you get COVID, because is that something?
Yes.
Okay.
Unfortunately, what we're seeing is that quite a few people who get COVID also have the flu. And probably got it around the same place. And those two diseases don't go well together. You can get much, much sicker with the two together. In general, the flu shot is one of those great examples of how a vaccine can, even if it doesn't prevent you from getting the disease, it can make the disease much less intense when it happens. So the less time you spend debilitated and laying in bed with the flu and going, oh, I can't move, I feel awful, that's more time that you might not also get COVID at the same time. It's more health that your body has in reserve to fight off COVID if you get it. And it's less time that you just spend miserable. Who wants the flu?
Great interview, Jennifer. Thank you so much.
Yeah, she was wonderful, just like a total wealth of knowledge. And I learned a lot through that. So,
yeah, and we got the answer to one of the biggest questions that a fair number of people are asking: where's the flu?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think she really did a good job of stressing the significance of still getting that flu vaccine, even though, you're not going out as much and people are thinking that the flu isn't really as active as it's been, because people aren't really going around people as much as they normally would be. But she's also right. Who wants to be sick and with the flu and have COVID on top of that? So it's better off to, protect yourself.
Yeah. Another topic on COVID, which is not good news, the UK variant, this very highly contagious UK variant, has reared its head in both Snohomish and Pierce County. And of what we know in testing patterns, if they're starting to see it in testing, it's not just these isolated cases. They're in community spread, especially because I believe the person from Pierce County has never gone and traveled, but did go to an event where they shouldn't have maybe done that.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think people are maybe starting to think that they can just kind of live with COVID. And, at least talked about it. We talked about it in the interview a little bit. You don't have to, completely shelter yourself in place, but you do need to be careful about who you're coming into contact with. And I think people have been enduring this pandemic for so long, they're getting more comfortable with potentially going and seeing people or just not making smart choices. And that's what's going to continue to keep us in this current state we're in longer.
Yeah, I was double masked last night and going up some of those hills in Tacoma. Certainly not any of this, I'm going to have an asthma attack, but I could definitely feel in doing cardio with all of that equipment and safety gear, I could feel the resistance of wearing two masks.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, people need to be smart, maintain social distancing, get your flu vaccine, wear a mask, wash your hands, all of that good stuff, because the rest of us would like to go places with other people other than the grocery store sometime.
Jennifer, thank you so much for that. We're going to do another little pause for the cause, and we're going to go to the next story.
Initially kind of came in and, said, hey, we're going to have to start moving people. And then a couple other people came in and we were like,
police to be held accountable for their actions.
Can You Hear Us is our documentary about the events that happened in Seattle from June 1st to July 4th. And the documentary is out, but it's not out for everyone. Hey, patrons, if you haven't gone to Patreon and checked your inbox, you need to check your inbox because the link to Can You Hear Us is there, as promised on January 25th. If you would like to get a sneak peek of Can You Hear Us, you can become a patron at any level, and you will have immediate access to it. We will be doing general access. It's free. We are sending this out because we want to get the word out, but we will be doing general access to everybody at the end of February. And with that, we're going to go ahead, Jennifer. We'll go ahead and jump into our next story.
Okay.
Jennifer, I had the pleasure to interview Nikki on the same day that you were interviewing Elise. Nikki is a retired attorney, previous public defender, a activist, and an author. And she spent about a year on the road traveling south of the Mason-Dixon line, to put it to her words, in Trump land. And she went and interviewed a number of people, and she has a book, My Travels in Trump Land, that is actually released today, as I understand it. We have that interview with her, and I'm going to go ahead and roll that.
Okay.
Hello, Malcontents. I'm David the Malcontent, and we are here with Nikki Blake Shavitz. Nikki, how are you doing this afternoon?
I'm joyous, sir. I'm joyous.
Oh, Nikki, please don't call me sir. I wore stripes once upon a time, but I do appreciate the respect very, very deeply. Nikki is the auntie of Jacob Blake. Jacob Blake was the individual that was shot in Kenosha by the Kenosha police. There was the press conference about 2 weeks ago where the Kenosha Police Department decided not to press charges on any of the offending officers. Nikki, first of all, would like to express our empathy and compassion, and thank you so much for joining us today.
It's very much appreciated.
You're going to be releasing a book called My Travels in Trump Land, and you traveled across the United States. Start by telling us about your experiences.
I had a dream the night before. My father was a friend of King's. I mean, I hate to say I had a dream, but I really did. My father came to me in a dream, and he said, would I be doing nothing about Trump if I were there? Would I be doing nothing, Nikki? Nothing. You're doing nothing. And I said to myself, well, Daddy, I don't have your charisma. And he says, what do you have? I said, I can write. He said, then write something. So I hit the road and I drove south of the Mason-Dixon line and started interviewing people who self-identified as Trump voters. About racism in America.
What would you say are your three biggest takeaways from the experience, the three biggest things you learned?
Being totally marinated in Trump voters is at times terrifying. Yet I bonded with many. I felt that many were extremely good people, some misguided and some calculating. I think we all know that Trumpers usually watch Fox News, Breitbart, and very many others that I didn't know the name of, but I do now, but I'm not going to give them airtime, right?
Right.
Let's say extremely conservative media. What we didn't know, I don't think, is that they exclusively watch it. They exclusively watch it. That means if Fox doesn't cover it, they really don't know.
What would you say is the most craziest thing that you were told doing your interviews?
I remember he was a banker, a retired banker, and he's on some boards. Sir, what do you think if, like, next year science determines that homosexuality can't be the fault of the individual because it's linked to a gene and they know exactly what gene it's linked to? And he says, I wouldn't care. So I said, if your God put homosexuality on a gene, you can't dispute what he says, well, no, you don't understand. I don't believe in science.
This is a hypocrisy issue that has driven me crazy. God's law is in the Bible. This is the law. And I said, okay, so because I'm Jewish by faith, but I'm a terrible Jew. We eat bacon and all that other stuff. So I'm like, all right, so why do you have a tattoo and why do you eat bacon? Well, Jesus said he's the new covenant. Nothing in the Old Testament counts. And I'm like,
That's
okay,
what I say.
Right. I'm like, okay, fine. I get that. Then why do you want to put the 10 Commandments up in front of the courthouse? Because the 10 Commandments are in the Old Testament. And Jesus, you're telling me, is the new covenant. And the new covenant is love thy neighbor as you love God himself and love God.
They don't care.
It couldn't have been all bad. There has to be a nugget of hope in here, right? There has to. So tell us about something where you walked away from a conversation where maybe your view changed.
When I challenged him to think, you're really not anti-science. I think some of that he dug the logic of, because he says, you know what, Nikki, I think I'm supposed to know you again. And I'd like for you to come down to my church.
So your book is coming out at the end of the month. If somebody wants to get your book, where do they go?
Bookbaby.com.
Nikki, I want to thank you so much for your time and for coming on to the show. We've been talking with Nikki Blake Shavitz, who is going to be coming out with her book, My Travels in Trumpland, at the end of the month. Nikki, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
I'm really looking forward to reading her book, Jennifer.
Yeah, me too. What an interesting project to, partake in. I bet she has some amazing stories in there.
She does. You've teed it up perfectly, and someone watching this would go like, "Oh, this is all rehearsed." Like, this is not rehearsed. But you teed it up perfectly, because we have a much longer interview version with Nikki, a good 20 minutes worth. We can't show that in the show. We really want this show to be an hour. Jennifer, we've never had it be an hour. Although we hit 90 minutes on the nose, I think the last 2 times. So we're getting better. But we will be releasing later this week that longer edition of that interview. We also have a longer version of the Elise interview, and we'll be releasing that also. And what we'll probably do is set those up as a stream. We'll do those as a automated stream, and then they'll be available on demand.
Great. Looking forward to watching the rest of that one.
The other thing I'd like to let our community know, we use Restream, so the chats are all integrated across the 4 channels that we're watching on, unless you're watching on Twitter. And because technically Twitter's the 5th, like, people need to know that. Nikki is in the comments right now. So if you have questions, I could tell you Nikki's going to love to answer them. And you can have an AMA going on, Ask Me Anything, with Nikki in the comments as we continue to move along with Happy Hour. And Jennifer, with that, we're going to do another pause for the cause.
Okay.
Black Coffee is a hub for communities and a hub for meeting people, making friends, and understanding.
What Black Coffee is to me is a place to actually call home, a place where Black youth will feel welcomed, where Black families will come and feel like they're at home.
What we're trying to build is more than just coffee. Community is something that we do naturally. We know who's in the community, we know what the deficits are, and we're trying to fix that. We want to bring people together.
My hope is that the phrase grounded in excellence shows up everywhere and that it becomes a movement.
I'm looking forward to hanging out at Black Coffee with my friends and feeling safe.
Black Coffee to me means opportunity for people like me and my other friends and family to come here and do homework safely and hang out and stuff like that.
That is happening. It is happening.
Black Coffee Northwest is located in Shoreline, Washington on Highway 99. I believe it's between like 170th and 180th. I want to say it's like around 175th. It is on the west side of Highway 99. They are open Monday through Saturday. And I know their hours have wiggled a little bit, so I don't want to give you the wrong hours, but you can check on their Facebook page or their website. Their coffee is amazing. And the potato scones. Jennifer, potato scones. I didn't even know this was a thing until I went to Black Coffee.
Yeah, and you talk about them a lot, so I feel like they must be really good, and you have a problem with them.
It's like a scone and a baked potato with cheese and onion had a baby.
Oh man, I'm vegan. I can't have it, but
Oh, because of the cheese. They do have vegan stuff there, but I can't say exactly what. The other thing, I did not know you were vegan. Learned something new. Another thing on like total vegan, there's in Kirkland, we have a midnight cookie company that opened up, and they're open from 4 to midnight, 4 p.m. to midnight. This is dangerous. And they do have vegan cookies.
Oh, thanks.
They also have vegan ice cream.
Trying to kill me here.
And on that note, we're going to go ahead and go to our next story.
Okay.
Jennifer, thank you for bringing us this story tonight.
Yeah, it's today Joe Biden signed an executive order lifting the transgender military ban. So I think you have a clip related to this.
Yeah, we can go ahead and make that happen.
Good evening, and it's great to have you with us here on a Wednesday night. And we begin with President Trump's sudden and sweeping ban, using Twitter to reveal it. Tweeting he will ban transgender people from serving in the military in any capacity. It came on a day when the defense secretary is on vacation, and the Pentagon saying essentially, if you have questions, ask the White House. The unexpected move brought immediate outrage, especially after promises made by then candidate Donald Trump. ABC's chief White House correspondent Jonathan Karl leading us off.
As a candidate, Donald Trump promised to protect gay, lesbian, and transgender rights. The first nominee ever to make such a promise at a Republican convention.
As your president, I will do everything in my power to protect our LGBTQ citizens.
Thank you so much for joining me, Captain. You are coming up on your 12th year anniversary in the military. You served a tour of duty in Afghanistan. You are returning home yesterday, and you see these tweets from the president. What did you think?
I didn't know what to think. I stepped off the plane and turned my phone on, and I was getting bombarded from friends and family, and a lot of people just asking, what's going on? What does this mean? How does this affect you? And I think the first thing that I thought was, what is going on? I was confused myself, and then that kind of turned into being angry, frustrated, and scared.
It's a blow to more than 2,000 transgender military personnel, like Lieutenant Colonel Bree Fram, an Air Force rocket scientist who came out when President Obama dropped the ban on transgender service, a ban the Supreme Court today allowed President Trump to bring back.
It's a really difficult message to face when you've been singled out as someone who's not wanted for something that has nothing to do with your ability to serve this country.
And we've also learned from sources that the president today will be signing an executive order lifting the Pentagon's ban on transgender people serving in the military. That controversial policy that President Trump put in place a few years ago, Biden has long supported reversing this. And we've learned that the new Defense Secretary, Lloyd Austin, who of course also supports this, will be on hand for the signing, George.
This is reinstating a position that previous commanders and as well as the secretaries have supported. And what I'm doing is enabling all qualified Americans to serve their country in uniform and essentially restoring the situation that existed before where transgender personnel, if qualified in every other way, can serve our government in the United States military.
Quite the journey for the transgender community.
Well, absolutely. And 3 years ago, Donald Trump announced this ban via Twitter, and the Pentagon was like, well, we're not going to answer questions. You have to defer to the administration. But, it's the same. During his campaign, he was like, oh, I'm going to protect what he called the LGBTQ community from the violence that's been inflicted on them by the Democrats. But then he went and inflicted that same violence through a tweet with no regard. So that's particularly interesting. So this is a big moment for the transgender community. this ban was upheld and allowed to take an effect by SCOTUS, the Supreme Court of the United States. And so I think this is a really kind of a good moment to be celebrated in that context.
It is. My view, and I come from a military family background. I failed my flight physical at MEPS, and that was the end of my flight career because they found an eye condition that I didn't know that I had at the time. And that was that. My sister was a pilot. My father was in the Army. I have two uncle in the Army, uncle in the Air Force. I can go on and on. Brother, Marine Corps. My view has always been if you can pass the physical and mental requirements, then what else matters? You can do the job, then what else matters?
Yeah, I know. The rigidity of gender construction within our society is absolutely insane, and gender norms for that matter. And these are historic and have carried through. And it's still, people talk about, we've come a long way. There's, been rights acquired and people have fought for these rights, but there's still very much discrimination that runs through systemically and impacts so many people. So I think this is a really positive thing at the moment, and something that should be celebrated.
And I agree. And I have a number of transgender people in my circle. They're all just absolutely wonderful people, and they're just people.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I don't get it. I mean, I get it. I don't get it. And I certainly will not stand up here and pretend that I understand their struggle, because I'll never understand their struggle. And if, and Jennifer, if you look in the BIPOC community, if you're transgender and BIPOC, if you look at things like life expectancy and number of violence incidents against it, it's absolutely terrifying.
No, absolutely. And I think this is why it's so important now that we normalize things like asking people for their pronouns, just basic things. And so we can, better, not better understand, but be, more accepting of the ways in which people are living their lives and the struggles that they're going through, and doing something as simple as going, hey, how would you like to be preferred to, rather than assuming somebody is, one particular gender or another. I think it's just something small people can do to really kind of help.
And if somebody is serving, and the other thing was when this ban went down in 2017, when the previous administration lifted the ban, essentially, right, we had this don't ask, don't tell, and then that kind of evaporated. And then it was like people that were transgender came out. So when the ban came down, people that had served with honor and distinction, including people in combat, were all of a sudden, facing being shown the door and having their military career ruined.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can, I'm like you, I can't imagine what that must have been like. But to have your entire life basically, near destroyed through a tweet, is just absolutely astounding to me. And then, to have him claim in these rallies that he's going to protect this community from violence and perpetrate it anyways, just, I think, shows the character or lack thereof that he possesses.
And if you're, I'm going to hit the chud button. If you're a chud,
These are chud. Cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers.
And you're upset about us talking about this, remember, Donald Trump promised he would not do this at the Republican National Convention. It's not some deep fake. It's not CNN. It's not the liberal press. He stood up on the stage in 2016 in front of the entire Republican Party, getting the nomination for president, saying, I'm going to protect this community.
Yeah. Yeah. He said it on more than one occasion at rallies. So this was not something that was a one-off that he said this one particular moment. He said this repeatedly throughout his campaign.
Yes, exactly. And the last thing I'll say about, military distinction, if you're somebody who is not like Tom Cotton, who goes, hey, I was an Army Ranger, and then people in the Rangers go like, dude, you're never an Army Ranger. It's like, ick.
That story. Oh, okay.
It's just ick. Little pause for the cause again, Jennifer. And again, if you haven't done it in a while, please spam those hearts. If you're watching on Facebook, Twitter or Periscope. You can go ahead and spam those hearts. Let the mods and admins know that you really appreciate the work that they're doing. Also, let Nikki know that you appreciate all those questions that she's answering. We've been seeing that go by in the chat. There's a great conversation that's going on the side over there. If you're watching us on Twitch or YouTube, I can't spam hearts. That's okay. You could just put a big row of hearts or say love you mods or love you show people or whatever else you want to do. And with that, Jennifer, I'm just going to do a quick thank you again to our patrons. And I know I have to update this graphic, patrons. I know. It's a little crazy today. It was on the list, that ended on the cutting room floor. And then we'll go into our second to last story. And tonight's episode of Behind the Poll takes us to Tacoma. Jennifer, Tacoma was interesting yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And good word.
I've streamed in multiple cities up and down the West Coast. I've been in some situations where I'm like, okay, these things are feeling a little sketch. My back of my hairs were up on my neck for quite a bit of last night.
Yeah. Yeah, you took some heat last night. You did.
I think that's kind of an understatement. There's a clip I so desperately want to show, but because it will be construed as violence, we can't show it.
Oh, I know what we're talking about too.
Yes, it's in the scroller, Malcontents. We have it in the scroller. There is a video out there. Matthew, Puget Sound's least favorite street preacher. You ain't Christian. No, seriously, like the Chuds, Chud button.
Chud. Cannibalistic, humanoid, underground dwellers.
The Chuds can't stand him. Black Lives Matter can't stand him. Antifa can't stand him. The police can't stand him. He's got to be one of the least favorite people in Puget Sound. And he decided to show up and do his agitation thing. And Matthew got a stop sign, like literally a stop sign across the face. I am not advocating violence, but Jennifer, deep inside.
All the feels, huh?
And I will stress, the reason I kind of smile and smirk, it was very clear he was not injured. He's a tough guy. I'll give him that. He's a tough guy. If you were watching our streams last night, you might have heard like this really loud fatang. And then I was like, wow, I don't know what that was. And I started to move. That was Matthew getting the stop sign treatment.
Wow.
What's that?
It made that loud of a noise?
Yes. Oh no, it's crazy loud. It's like cartoonish, which is why when you watch it, it has this comic element to it because it's like you're watching MTV Jackass or something. It's like this couldn't have possibly happened.
It's like when Wile E. Coyote or the Roadrunner drops.
This is totally what I thought, right? It's like it was so loud. It's like, is there an impression of his face? But again, I don't think that because he didn't stumble, nothing. Wow. Mad props to you, man. You're a tough dude. I'll give that to you. Renee Rackety, our field producer, was down there with me. Normally what we do with Behind the Poll is on Poll Cam, there's an additional camera that's on the front of the poll. And I guess I should answer that for some people who may have watched our stream because I heard comments like, am I writing? I heard there were comments, I didn't see them, on things like, how tall am I? Is he riding a giraffe? Is he on stilts? How is he getting these shots? It's a big poll. It's literally like a painter's poll. And I haven't given credit in a long time to Eric Greatwood, but I have to give credit to Eric Greatwood in Portland months ago because he's the original poll cam dude. And months ago, he explained how his whole setup was. And I was like, between what was in the studio and in my garage, I'm like, I have almost all these parts now. And I built poll cam. So anyway, that's how we got those high views. I don't see what you see because I'm not up that high. So there's a GoPro at eye level And then I have another GoPro that I keep on my helmet, which I call Spicy Cam. Normally, behind the pole would include that. It was really weird last night, and we're going to get into the weirdness. And we have an interview, Jennifer, with one of the black protest leaders down there. They're not happy about last night, and it's not just that individual, but we'll get into that a little later. Renee Rackety prepared this video for us, and Jennifer, I'm going to go ahead and roll it.
Okay.
Renee, thank you so much for pulling that video together for us. I love when we have multiple people in the field in an event and we get all of these different points of view.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say about Tacoma last night. There was so much going on. So I'm glad that you were able to get an interview and talk to somebody and kind of get that perspective from somebody who's within that community.
Yeah, I think what I'll do, I think I'm going to roll that interview first, Jennifer, and then I'm going to get into kind of my viewpoint and story, because I think having the perspective of a black person who's from Tacoma and is involved in the Tacoma protest scene and looking through their lens is really critical. Rex, I did see your question about, is there anywhere like on, there isn't like protest routes per se in Seattle, but yeah, there's some roads they go down. There's really not any places if you wanted to follow a protest with a drone that I would say is a good spot. There's flipping power lines everywhere, and there's trees everywhere. And people, especially if things have gotten crazy, now you wouldn't have this problem with a drone, but people who have watched when things have gotten crazy and Seattle police get real hectic, and they force me onto the sidewalk, like, no, you got to get on the sidewalk. It just becomes a nightmare for me on pole cam. Because there's an amazing video where they're running us hard, Jennifer. This is before you came on the show, and the pole is just tearing through the trees. It's really an amazing video to watch, and I'm really, I'm stunned that pole cam held up.
Sturdy.
It was sturdy. With that, let's go ahead and roll that interview. We're here with Azriel, who is a activist out of Tacoma with the organization BAD. Azriel, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Azriel, why don't you tell us first a little bit about BAD as an organization and what your charter and mission is?
So BAD as an organization, we started as a protest activist group. We have actually just formed our 501c, so we're a newly established nonprofit here. We have a really, really, really diverse team. BAD stands for Black and Done. But what's most important to BAD is diversity and culture and just bringing people together. So we're focused on peaceful interactions and just keeping the community positive. We want to do a lot of positive stuff around here and keep everyone good and with each other. That's the primary goal.
Azriel, last night in Tacoma, we were hearing a lot from the Black community around us as we were covering the protest. And there was a lot of anger and disappointment and how the protests went down. And this morning, there's a lot of outrage that was on social media. Could you tell us a little bit about, your point of view in this and about the neighborhood that the protest went through?
I was 100% heartbroken about the events of last night. For one, I want to make it very clear that was not a Black Lives Matter protest. That was a lot of radical extremists from mainly the Seattle area. And most of those people are white people. They came down here and their primary goal was to destroy our community. And that's what they did. While they were doing this destruction and whatnot, what made me the most upset about it is they destroyed all this stuff and were lighting all these fires and breaking all these windows. And then they would tag everything Black Lives Matter or Brown Pirate or BLM. That is not, there was no Black Lives Matter protesters there. In fact, that is a primarily Black community. There's no way we were going to come in our own community and destroy our own community. It was absolutely outrageous and it made me sick, you know? And it's just, that shit has to stop. That has to stop. This is our town, you know?
So the neighborhoods that they went through, those are primarily Black neighborhoods in Tacoma.
100%. 100%. Hilltop right now is enduring a lot of gentrification, but it still is predominantly Black. And my thing was, if you're going to go tear shit up, why are you in the Black neighborhood doing it? And then tagging shit, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. It's not Black Lives Matter. You guys don't care about Black lives. You have your own agenda, and that's fine. Push your own agenda, but don't use my agenda to shit on my people and our culture.
Tell us a little bit about your organization experienced an incident also that evening. Could you tell us a little bit about what happened?
Absolutely. So BAD is normally on the front lines of most protests. We have a big cargo van that we use for medical treatment and providing, you know, care packages and snacks, food and water and whatnot, and shelter for injured protesters who are getting hit by tear gas and all that kind of stuff. So everyone knows who we are. We're very active and our van's very visible. There's a giant red crosses all over and it has giant BLMs all over it. So it's a very clear that it's a Black Lives Matter van. Our van was, 2 tires were slashed in the beginning of the protest. And toward the end of the night, when we went back trying to arrange a tow truck, these radicals came back to us and they boxed me and my vice president in, and they jumped out the car, they looked right at us, and they slashed the rest of the tires. You know, and it's really, really upsetting. You know, it's heartbreaking. It really is. You know, we're trying to fix our community, and they're trying to destroy it.
It's maddening, Jennifer. It's really, and you know, somebody told me as a white person to shut the fuck up. So we had a Black person who wanted to come on to the show from Tacoma and tell their story and their view. And their view echoes the view that we were telling our watchers last night.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, you can feel like the anger and like frustration in his voice, and rightfully so. So I'm really glad that you got the opportunity to speak with him.
We spent hours today researching this because there was a lot, and I said this at the top of the show, right, Jennifer? There's all this stuff coming out from all different directions, and we want to get it right. Yep. And the cacophony from the Black activist community in Tacoma on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, you couldn't ignore it. There was just an outroar from protest leadership. And I know, like, people, they're not leader. I get it. I get it. But it's like, then what word do you use in the interest of brevity? So activists, leaders, organizers across multiple organizations, very, very upset over what happened. And multiple organizations either didn't show up or yanked their support before the protest even started.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't know. I can't put it into words, but why go into a community and try to frame it as a particular kind of protest when it's really not? And it feels so much like you're going into this community and he's right. You have this particular agenda and you're pushing this agenda, but you're, using somebody else's kind of name and ideology or whatever to push that particular agenda.
And if people haven't watched this before, I know that we had literally thousands of people that got introduced to us to the first time last night. So if you're not familiar with our streams, we're not against what we call diversity of tactics, and we don't support diversity of tactics. There are things that we've seen on here, and I'll flat out say, just because we're showing it doesn't mean that we agree with it. But there's a fundamental, our view is there is a fundamental right, whatever word you kind of want to use, for a diversity of tactics. But there were people that are going, hey, this is a Black Lives Matter protest, when the Black community pulled out before the protest even started because they were already positioning on social on Sunday morning. Yep. This is not a Black Lives Matter protest. We don't like the plan. We don't think it's safe, and we're not going to get involved. I know that Black leadership in Tacoma didn't want to set up at Frost Park because they felt it's a dangerous location. Black leadership in Tacoma didn't want to go up 9th Avenue, up that hill, because there's so many places where people could come in from the side, and there were chuds all around, including chuds harassing the group as we went up that hill. Then there was this pause, this confusion up at the top of the hill outside of this McDonald's on which way the road we want to go. And what we learned on social is there were Tacoma activists that wanted the march to go into a different direction. It didn't go into that direction. And at the end of the day, we saw this firsthand. They were just going through and smashing car windows of like any car that was parked. These are Black people in a gentrifying Black neighborhood in the middle of COVID who don't have money for this.
Yeah.
How is this supporting Black Lives Matter? How?
It's not, and it's what it boils down to. And I think he said it in the interview, is that it's a form of cultural appropriation, and just using that and like appropriation to further a particular agenda that's not even connected to Black Lives Matter, that doesn't really care about Black Lives Matter, because you're in this Black community basically destroying their property.
Right. And as Nikki pointed out in the interview that we have, people in the right live in their echo chamber. Somebody who is deep embedded in the right isn't going to listen to one word as we say. Just as somebody who is very, very far deep embedded in the left isn't going to listen to one word we say. We're two in the middle for either of those sides. We lean left. I will freely admit that. But we're two in the middle for both sides.
Yeah.
But what was the right saying about it? They were saying Tacoma burned down to the ground last night, which we know that isn't true either. But what did the Black community wake up to? Well, the Black community in Tacoma woke up this morning to, your neighborhood's burned down, you trashed your own neighborhood, Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization. That's what the Black community in Tacoma woke up to. So,
what a way to wake up, right? Like, God.
Great way to show your support.
Yeah. Super strong allies there.
And
wow.
I will close with it again. If you are pushing the press out, then you are no better than what you are fighting against.
Yep, absolutely.
And I have stood up here and I have defended all press, left press, right press. I'll say it again. I defended Katie Davis Court when she got friggin' maced in the face. I don't think she deserves my defense at this point, but I did defend her. Because she's barely a journalist, certainly not objective. But if somebody is doing their job to be a journalist, to document the truth, and you want to hide the truth, you need to go back and look in the mirror.
Yep, absolutely.
Because we can just go back to Trump land and give him the election, and then we'll have it that nobody can tell the news. We'll just go to a state news agency.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm off my soapbox, Jennifer. With that, we're going to do, we'll do a pause for the cause, and then we're going to go into our favorite part of the show.
Yeah.
So very long, try to speak my mind, but no one knows the language, so I push it to the side. Music has a power greater than words can really express. Songbird, sing a song to me, let me know where I'm supposed to be. It's such a shame, well, I was your TV girl. The EP is called Blue, and my website is classicelishamusic.com.
Classic Elijah's EP is available on her website on the URL that we showed you. It is also available on Bandcamp and iTunes. So if you have an iDevice and you're on iTunes, you can just push an I button and you can have Blue right on your phone. If you go to the website, you can order a physical CD with a bonus track, $13 for the EP, $15 for the CD. She has a voice of the angel. And Jennifer, I know I've been saying we want to get her in here because she's working on her next album. Just to let you know, I mean, Jennifer, you know what's going on, but to let everybody else know, the news cycle has been nuts. But if you happen to notice, we're starting to move back to in-house content again. So we're starting to get our feet back on the ground.
Yay.
Jennifer, favorite part of the show?
Yay.
I have to laugh about the insurrection at this point because I would still curl up in the ball in the fetal position and start crying afterwards. But this trade wreck is like a gift that keeps on giving.
You took the words out of my mouth because I was going to say the same thing. Stop it.
All right, I think we'll do the back and forth thing because people loved when we did the back and forth thing. I'll go ahead and start with our general update. Over the weekend, Jennifer, Kentucky Senator Rand Paul.
Oh, God.
I don't know. I don't know if he has a brain injury from the COVID or from his neighbor kicking his ass, but Kentucky, why? All right. Anyway, he was on with George Stephanopoulos, and George was being a good journalist. And George was just, like, so Biden won. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, right? So Biden won. So Biden won. So Biden won. And Rand Paul was like, and of course, let's not forget that on January 6th, 1,000 people were literally inside the Capitol. Another 6,000 or 7,000 people immediately outside the Capitol, and 5 people died. And Rand Paul apparently wants to have the 14th Amendment dropped on his ass.
Apparently, but I mean, Rand Paul, for lack of better terms, has always kind of come off as batshit crazy. So this isn't really that surprising to me that he wouldn't go as far as to say Biden won the election.
All right, hit us with the next one.
So our favorite minority leader, Mitch McConnell, was hinting, did you like that minority leader now? It's minority leader, was hinting he would use the filibuster one last time in an effort for a power sharing version of the Senate and then back down. So he made like one last ditch effort at a power grab and then was like, no, I better not.
I can't picture minority and Mitch McConnell in the same sentence. I mean, this guy is
make his just skin like a crawl.
He is the walking definition of WASP. White Anglo-Saxon Protestant, if you don't know what WASP is. All right, it's my turn. Impeachment paperwork was formally submitted to the Senate, and a trial date, Jennifer, has been set for February 8th.
Wow, that's not very far away.
No, it's not very far away, is it? So we'll see what happens, although some Republicans are backing off, it seems. And I would almost say that some Democrats are kind of starting to creep back a little bit. In the Republican Party, there's some very serious concerns about Donald Trump and his Patriot Party that he'll form. Yeah. But my understanding is that not only is the name Patriot Party already taken, it's actually trademarked. And it's a long-standing trademark. So Donald's probably going to be unhappy to learn he can't call it Patriot Party. Or if he tries to, he might be facing a lawsuit. But, he loves that stuff.
Yeah, I know. It's we were talking last week about people getting complacent after Biden's inauguration. And I think this using impeachment in this context as political theater and not following through with it is really problematic because you're just setting the stage for something like this to happen again.
Yeah, not related to the insurrection. One thing that I've noticed, And I'm going to give the political right this one, Jennifer. COVID coverage has totally changed in the mainstream media.
Yep, I agree.
It has totally changed. And I think it's bullshit because it is the worst thing that is facing this country right now. And, you know, we're not seeing like numbers, and we're not like, we're seeing, oh, there's this variant and stuff and all. One thing that Joe Biden is doing, I know we're rat holing on COVID. He is going to institute a harsher travel ban to other countries. But it appears that Pandora box, what a surprise. We had this friggin' a year ago. It appears that Pandora's box is already open.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, you know, now there's increased resistance to his proposed COVID package. And so this is just going to continue to be an ongoing mess. And we're going to be stuck in this like cycle of, we get out a little bit, then people are dumb or going back in because we're not doing the stuff that we need. But COVID coverage, you're right now does not reflect that.
Tell us about America's favorite mayor.
Oh, Rudy Giuliani has been sued by Dominion Voting Systems for 1.2 or unsubstantiated or disproven claims of election manipulation. The $1.2 trillion lawsuit represents a series of suits filed by the company, and I bet he really wishes Donald Trump would pay him now.
Yeah, because Donald Trump stiffed him for the bill.
Yep. He's going to be sending text messages, going to find himself blocked. Not going to get his money.
Who's this calling me? Oh, it's Rudy. Yeah, voicemail.
Voicemail, yeah.
He's calling again. Voicemail. Somebody, I can't use this thing anyway. I can't do Twitter. Somebody like put this in a wood chipper. Get me a new one.
Yeah.
Oh, the parlor scrape. This is another one, Jennifer, the gift that keeps on giving. A scrape of parlor has identified 6,000 individuals who were inside or immediately outside the Capitol. And somebody using a simple AI program has put all 6,000 of their faces on the internet on a website.
Oh, goodness. That's what you get for making bad choices and then publishing it for the world to see.
Overthrowing the government. Hey-ya!
Yeah. My favorite was the TikTok week with the Louis Vuitton sweater.
You'll have to go back to our show Thursday, Malcontent. It's also on our website. We break up the segments on the shows. You can go to the website for the Insurrection update from last Thursday, and you can hear about Louis Vuitton sweater woman. You have actually a little, I mean, we're laughing about this, but you actually have a little darker story here.
Oh, yeah, this one is maddening. The Department of Justice is worried that the courts are becoming overwhelmed with criminal cases due to the insurrection and is considering letting some minor crimes go uncharged.
Which goes back to our earlier point about, maybe, we'll take the foot off the gas pedal a little bit. No, you don't. This isn't sidewalk chalk on a friggin' wall outside the East Precinct here.
No, this is people that tried to collectively overthrow a sitting government to install a dictator.
And you know what's interesting, Jennifer, that you make that point is as it's sinking in to the over 150 people now that are facing criminal charges over this and counting, and they didn't get the pardons that they expected. They're all kind of like saying Trump made me do it, which of course is not going to help in the impeachment trial.
No, it's not. But I just think it's going back to, we've talked about the ways in which these insurrectionists were treated via BLM and protesters and whatnot. And I mean, do you really think in this context that these minor crimes would go uncharged if these weren't white men and women charging the Capitol?
We know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to me. I'm not an attorney, right? I'm not an attorney. I'm not a constitutional expert here. I would think if Donald Trump gets impeached and your lawyer says, well, my client went there because this guy who was impeached told him to go, that actually provides some legal defense for you, right? That, well, how much I was following orders goes. On the other side of the coin, if Donald Trump doesn't get impeached, then they're boned. They can't even make the argument.
So this actually, we talk about this in comparison to Germany. This actually reminds me of a lot of the Nuremberg trials, when they're basically letting these smaller, the lower level people go, because they're essentially just listening to orders and following orders, and going and trying to charge the higher ranking people. And we all know how that turned out. Operation Paperclip, like really nobody served any actual sustained time, and the majority after a short period of time were let go. And so I think this is very similar to that. You put on this political theater in this show, and it looks, from the looks of it, you're not going to have people really paying the consequences that are commensurable for the crime.
Jennifer, I have a question about the Nuremberg trials.
Yes.
Why did they just prosecute people in Nuremberg? I mean, they called it the Nuremberg trials. Weren't there other Nazis elsewhere in Germany?
Okay, Ted Cruz, calm down.
One show a night, folks. That was a dig at Ted Cruz.
Yeah.
All right. I've got one more, and then we're going to go over the arrests. We love the arrests.
Yeah.
The Wall Street Journal reported that then, at the time, President Trump considered firing acting Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen, installing a Trump loyalist, Jeffrey Clark, who would then attempt to overthrow the vote results in Georgia. Clark has gotten very quiet on this issue.
Yeah. What is his obsession with Georgia? Georgia in the context of the bigger picture would not have made a difference.
If he overthrew Georgia, he would make me a criminal mastermind.
Apparently, well, you already are. We know this, David. I just don't quite understand the obsession. There has to be some underlying Republican president hasn't lost the state and blah, blah, blah. And he got all, fragile about it. And I don't know, but poor Georgia.
Yeah, it really doesn't make sense. You would think he would be going, like, if you look at a state with a close vote, there's Arizona, and then, of course, Pennsylvania. And if he got those two, then the outcome, then he's moved the needle.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. What it must be like to live in that world.
Take us to the best part, Jennifer. You go first.
Arrest since Thursday. So our first one, Andrew Erickson of Oklahoma, was arrested on Friday after authorities found Snapchat videos of him breaching the Capitol and snagging a bottle of Corona from one of the Capitol fridges.
Oh, wait a minute. Corona.
Yeah.
Did it have a new bandana tucked into it? Or was it filled with clear liquid?
Oh, God.
National audience, that's a Seattle joke. You'll have to go back to September.
Yeah. So apparently he felt like he needed a brew to accompany his breaching of the Capitol, and then posted it all on Snapchat.
There's your scandal. They're drinking Mexican beer.
Yeah. Did it come from a caravan? What even?
They sneak it across the wall. Yeah. All 47 miles that got built for $15 billion. Look it up.
Gross.
And Mexico didn't pay for 1 penny of it.
They did.
And Steve Bannon got pardoned.
Yeah. After what, he took a bunch of the money.
Oh, this looks like a doozy that I got here, Jennifer.
Yep.
Scott Fairlamb, a New Jersey gym owner, was arrested Friday for alleging shoving and punching a Capitol police officer during the riot. What a guy. Identified via tips by his brown camouflage jacket, and was, I guess maybe they should have blocked up Jennifer, and was also seen on video carrying a collapsible baton. Fairlamb held a protest at his Pompton Lakes gym in May in response to COVID restrictions. Why am I not surprised on that punchline?
It's really funny to me that you're wearing a camouflage coat and you still got caught, because whatever. Yeah, but this is another poor instance of somebody turning you in and doing dumb stuff and thinking you weren't going to get any consequences from it. And depending on the crime, you may not at this point. But I was curious to kind of know what the gym protest looked like. What were they protesting for? What kind of gym is this? Is this like a jewelry store kind of thing? Is it like GTL, Gym Tan Laundry? I don't know.
Hello, I am Hans. We are Franz. It's time to get pumped up and goofy. I have done too much steroids at my gym. I'm mad at the government. I am now going to go overthrow it because my leader has told me to. Yeah. Take us to Ohio, Jennifer.
Oh boy, Dustin Thompson of Ohio. I know why you're making me do this one because people give you crap all the time on our chat about saying the F word. Dustin Thompson of Ohio was arrested after being found in the secure zone after the insurrection. According to authorities, he stole a coat rack and then texted his friend that we need to, quote, get the fuck out of here with this trophy, end quote.
This is written. This is written.
I love to get to push the watch the F-bombs button on you.
It was in a quotation.
I know. This is the guy that was waiting for the Uber pickup, right?
Yeah, with his friend.
With his friend, with the bottle of bourbon.
Yeah.
I What are you boys doing? We're waiting for our Uber. Well, you know, you're in the secure zone. The Uber's not going to come pick you up. You need to go walking. Well, what's with the coat rack? The dude ran. Then his buddy is friggin' at the hotel waiting for him.
Yeah. And then they were able to like use the serial number to identify the coat rack and return it to the Capitol. But
this is how you know it's not Antifa, because if his buddy got back and found him in the hotel room, he would have kicked his ass. Kevin Strong of California was arrested after being identified on video by people where he worked at the FAA. Strong believed he had a Q clearance, and he admitted that in the FBI interview. And Jennifer, what's more amazing about this story, there are people that follow Q that think that he is Q.
Yeah. You were telling me about that a little bit before the show, but I want to know what Q clearance is. Do you have a badge? Where does this come from?
That's a good question. Hey, Malcontent, over in the comments, what's a Q clearance? Does it is it even a thing? It must be a thing. Let us know. All right, you get Florida. It's got to be good because it's Florida.
I wish there were pictures, because some of the pictures of these people would make this so much better. So Bradley Weeks of Florida was arrested after videoing his participation in the insurrection and, of course, posting it on social media. In the video, Weeks can be heard shouting, quote, "We've gotten through and we're going to take back the Capitol. We're taking back our country. This is our 1776. This is where it's going to happen. This is where tyranny will fall. This is where America will rise. Look at this, America. Look at this." Yes, Bradley, look at this, because now you're in jail.
We are not the same. I'm an American. You're a sick asshole.
I mean, you set up the clip perfectly. What else can we say?
The whole 76 thing makes me insane, because that's not technically, that was when the Declaration of Independence was signed, but that's not when the revolution started. And my favorite person, Colorado Representative Lauren Boebert, tweeted, "This is our 1776 on the day of the insurrection."
Yes. They were shooting at each other well before 1776.
Yes, they were. Yeah.
The intolerable acts. I know I'm preaching to the choir, Jennifer. And one day, when this whole COVID fuckery.
What's the F-bombs? This is written. This is written.
This whole COVID nightmare is over. You and I will be able to sit down face to face and have a great history discussion.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm looking forward to it one day.
Well,
Nolan Cook of Texas was arrested after being identified in a TikTok video. Of course. Make America great again. China's evil. Donald Trump wanted to make TikTok illegal. Check out my TikTok video of me storming the Capitol. Telling a woman I wouldn't want anyone other than you with me to take on the revolution.
What about the camera and me? Oh, how romantic.
That's a better language that I want to take you to by. I want to take a liberal to the what palace? I can't even...
And I just imagine this like super romantic moment. He's like, I couldn't do this with anybody else but you.
I wish I had a clip for it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Hallelujah! Holy shit! Where's the Tylenol?
That was the best one I had. Take us to Montana.
Oh, so Henry Hank Munzer of Montana was arrested after posting a video on Facebook where he stated, quote, "Here's the video when we stormed the Capitol and got above the guards." It's also been reported that Munzer has at times had murals, supporting QAnon painted on the wall of his appliance business.
And business must be booming.
Yes, absolutely.
Was he selling appliances made in China?
Probably.
Hallelujah!
Yeah.
Holy shit!
Oh, Hank.
Okay, this really is my favorite part of the show now. I'm gonna be so disappointed when they're done with the arrests.
Oh, no.
It really is so. Patrick Stedman of New Jersey, a self-identified dating and relationship strategist. Their love is in the air. We're overthrowing the government. Love is in the air. Tear gas everywhere. Was arrested after posting video for his 25,000 Twitter followers. Okay, I'm jelly. We only have like 2,000. Detailing his experience. Stedman, of course, assertive. I can't even say this with a straight face. Dating a relationship strategist. He lives with his parents. He encouraged his fans. Okay, wait a minute. Little decorum here. I can't read through this. He encouraged his fans to join him in Washington, D.C. on January 6th, a date he said that would eventually be a national holiday akin to the 4th of July.
I'm crying. I'm laughing.
Oh, you're red.
Hallelujah! Holy shit!
There's so much wrong with all of this.
Do I have to hit the technical difficulties button for us to catch our breath here for a second?
How do you self-identify as a dating and relationship strategist while living with your parents?
All right. Take us to Nebraska.
Brandon Strinka of Nebraska, founder of the Walk Away campaign to convince liberals to leave the Democratic Party, shared video of himself on the Capitol steps during the riot. He later tweeted, quote, "Be embarrassed and hide if you need to, but I was there. It was not Antifa at the Capitol. It was freedom-loving patriots who were desperate to fight for the final hope of our republic. Literally nobody cares about them. Everyone else can denounce them. I will not." So here we have proof. It was not Antifa.
I have a feeling that Breitbart and OWN and Newsmax will not be reporting on Brandon's arrest.
Probably
not. And to
not.
Nikki's point, there will be in their bubble and it just never happened.
Yes.
Stephanie Hazelton of New Jersey. Hey, I'm from Jersey. Are you from Jersey? I was arrested after video was posted to social media and was identified by New Jersey police who saw her calling for more men and to just keep pushing. Did you set me up? You did this on... She wrote this tonight. More men and just keep pushing as officers tried to hold back the domestic terrorist. Hazelton is also an anti-vaxxer and not someone who watches our show, who goes by the alias Alia Wolf.
Apparently she's had several run-ins with the New Jersey police. Yeah, you should look up pictures of her. She's interesting.
Okay, yep. Does she need a hookup with Quanon Shaman dude? Interesting.
Oh, yeah, I think so. I think they would be very compatible. Very compatible.
My name for him, Malcontents, is Dances with Traitors, by the way, the guy with the horns. Malcontents, we're getting to the end of our list, and we're 5 minutes overtime, 6 minutes overtime, but this is my favorite part of the show. We have one more, so this is the time. Either mods, admins for questions, go ahead and drop those questions in there, because by the time you get them, we'll be done laughing at this last one. This is all you,
This
Jennifer.
has been a bad time for New Jersey. Marissa Suarez of New Jersey was also arrested for her role in the insurrection. Suarez has been a correctional officer since 2019, but resigned after charges were filed. She was identified on video by her coworkers.
I guess the thin blue line didn't work there for her.
No. But I love that she resigns after, charges were filed. Like, who knows? Maybe she might have gotten to keep her job. I don't know. Yeah. So.
Well, she's very familiar with the penal system, and so we'll be looking potentially at some serious correction soon.
Her and Stephanie Hazelton, aka Ayla Wolf, were arrested on at the same day.
Oh my goodness gracious! And that's it, Jennifer. Thank you so much for pulling that together. And the double and triple and we need more men. Just keep pushing.
You have to look up a picture of her, and it's yeah.
Does she look like Barbarella?
Kind of.
Oh. Did I just drop my Gen X roots again? Like the whole, our Gen Z audience, like, who the hell is Barbarella? Go to the pot shop, get some good weed or some edibles, and then watch Don't try to watch Barbarella in a lucid state, because you might only get through like 15 minutes of it and go, what the hell is this? So get good and trashy, then watch it.
Yes. I agree.
Okay, we're ready for the questions. Do we have? I know there were questions because I saw all sorts of questions going by, but I also do know that sometimes there are people answer the questions, and so any news progress on the kids in cages? That's a great question. I will tell what little bit that I know. Are there still kids in cages? As far as I know, yes. Stop. I do know that 88% of deportations have just been put on a full stop. There was an individual, we shared it on our Facebook page and on our Twitter. He had been hiding in a church in North Carolina, Jennifer?
Yeah, I think so.
For 1,300 days from the Trump administration, from deportation. He walked out of that church today, a free man, and with the writ of deportation for him canceled, and he was able to go back home and see his family for the first time in 1,300 days. I'm not going to sit here and be an apologist, but it hasn't been a week. So it hasn't been a week. And here's the thing on the unfortunate mess. This is my view on kids in cages and separated from parents. If they just let them all out, we already know that Department of Homeland Security, ICE, and the Trump administration at best kept shitty records. So who do they release them to? Now, should they be released to better conditions? Absolutely. putting them in a foster home better conditions? Look at the stats on foster homes. So it's a big freaking mess. And I don't think that this is something corrected with the stroke of a pen. I think the right question to ask is not, are there kids in cages still? I think the right question is, are they putting any more kids in cages today? That, I think, is the right question. And it's a good question to ask.
No, absolutely.
Don't know the answer.
And I think there needs to be a time when the news cycle dies down, when we kind of talk about this longer history of how, people from Mexico came to be identified as illegal in the United States after, the mid-19th century and the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848. And then talking about, too, a little bit more about why this family separation thing is something that is, goes back far longer and has really been a tool used by the state, going back to, plantation owners in the South and taking indigenous children away from indigenous parents and giving them to white parents, and why this has been such an effective tool and why they continue to use it.
Yeah, exactly. Mods, there's a bunch of questions that I know because there's so many questions coming in tonight and they're just scrolling by, and I'm watching questions just disappear before I can get to them. I did see the one question scroll up with what kind of cameras do we use, which is an interesting question. We use Samsung Galaxy Notes. We use GoPro 8s. We use Renee is a Canon shooter, and I am a Nikon shooter. We both shoot full frame. I'm shooting with mirrorless, and Renee is shooting with a DSLR. So, and then there's some other ancillary equipment that we use, but that I can answer because I saw that go by. Rex is asking, is some areas in Seattle better, more clear? Absolutely. There's some areas in Polcam that are great. There's some areas that are a nightmare. I had reached a point in the Capitol Hill area where I could just navigate. Like I literally knew, okay, there's a wire here or there's a branch here, and I didn't have to look up anymore. Tacoma, there was a couple of lines that were low, and they were lines like that, and that those lines made me nervous. That would have been career-ending move to hook any of those. So mods, can you maybe sync some of the questions that came up? Or I guess what I can do, I don't know, Jennifer, just talk for a minute. So I'm going to put you on the screen so I can go scroll. I know you love when I tell you that.
Yeah.
I fill time.
Just randomly put me on the screen for no reason. I don't really have anything to talk about. We talked about all the good stuff, the crazy arrests, the insurrection updates. It's not like I can give a whole history lecture right now. Find your questions, man. Hi, guys. How's everybody doing tonight? Everybody good? I'm still not.
Here we go.
Moving.
All right, one of the questions we have, is there any facts or information on the approximately 140 officers that were injured during the insurrection? Officials have been tight-lipped on their injuries and their conditions. Good, bad, or indifferent. This is typically how the police roll. I don't know if they're staying tight-lipped because there are not a lot of injuries, and so they just want the number out there. Thank you, Seattle Police Department, for having me not trust the police ever again for my life. Thank you so much for instilling that to me. It took to my temples to get gray to reach that point, but thank you. Or is it just the case that they're holding that information because they're trying, for trials and stuff, they don't want to taint jury pools? I don't know, but they've been pretty tight-lipped on that information. We do know that some officers were very seriously injured.
Mm-hmm.
Can the FBI arrest Trump as no longer president? My understanding is that yes, that Trump no longer has this legal protection of I'm the president. I certainly know that at state level, when I say state crimes, I don't mean federal crimes. Jennifer, this is your wheelhouse. I'm going to shut up and hand it over to you. Sorry.
What are you handing over to me? Whether or not he can be arrested?
Because I mean, this is your area of expertise. I went in mansplaining mode. I'm sorry.
No, you're totally good. My primary field is 19th and 20th century American Indian history, but I do teach early American history. So it's my understanding that he can be prosecuted he doesn't have those same kind of protections anymore, and he can definitely be prosecuted at the state level. I know that for sure, and that is even something that his pardons wouldn't have exempted him from. So I'm not sure what's going on in the context of federal investigations into him. There's got to be something going on, but I do know that New York in particular has a lot of investigations into him and his family. So it would not surprise me if some of that comes out sooner rather than later.
Question about, did we see the Italian PM is resigning, sending country into more turmoil from COVID? I saw the headline. I haven't read it. But a lot of the European countries are having a lot of problems because they have had, it's not like they've had bad economies, but they haven't had great economies. This has gone on for years and years and years. They've been in deficit spending for decades, in part because of Cold War spending and reconstruction after World War II. And there's just, and now you just throw in COVID, and you look at a country like Italy where tourism is so critical. And, what do people think of Italy right now? Like, Italy is COVID central. That was like last year. And no, I don't want to go there. So they got a lot of problems. Somebody's asking me the question, your DA dismisses minor charges, so why not the DOJ dismiss being on the exterior of the Capitol? The exterior of the Capitol, it's a valid question. I'm going to give it to you. It's a valid question. If you're standing on the outside of the Capitol and you're just holding a sign yelling, if you're standing outside of the Capitol punching a cop in the face, no, there's no, or as we know, this one guy who threw the fire extinguisher, Jennifer, and hit 3 cops, including injuring one badly. We know that. Not the cop not Sick Nick, but another one. They didn't have a helmet on and they took a friggin' fire extinguisher to the head. If you've crossed the barricades, you've done trespassing. And if you went on the lawn, do you prosecute 8,000 people? That's a tough question. Because our legal system isn't set up to support it.
No, it's really not. And it is a tough question, but then you have to get down to what's going to end up constituting a minor crime in this context. I don't know. Regardless, there needs to be some form of, there's got to be something put into place, and I don't know what that needs to be to prevent this from happening again. And if we just let people get complacent and let this kind of get brushed under the rug like people are trying to do, you're just setting yourself up for this to happen again.
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to an earlier point I said in the show, right? We're not talking about literally sidewalk chalk on a temporary wall outside of a police station.
Yeah.
Right? And there are multiple people arrested. And I'm going to call this one out too. There have been more people arrested, dozens, for broken windows at Starbucks. And remember, earlier in the show, it's I'm not a fan of this stuff. How many people have been arrested for the firebombing of Black Coffee back on October 1st? Survey says 0. And so how can one not look at that and go, so does the government support small business? Does the government support black business? Is there equality in enforcement? Because I think everybody listening to us tonight right now, Jennifer, knows if it was a Starbucks that was attempted to be firebombed in Shoreline, Washington on October 1st.
It'd be much different.
And I just don't see King County or Shoreline Police Department breaking their backs to solve the case. We're bumping up on time, Malcontents. We're actually almost 20 minutes over. I know there's more questions, but going to call it. Jennifer, thank you so much. Great program tonight. We had a ton of stuff. We'll see what Thursday brings.
Yep.
So from David and Jennifer, good night, Malcontents.
Malcontent News is a team of journalists, activists, and researchers with 3 key missions. A commitment to show an unfiltered view of the before, during, and after of key events live as it happens. to defend the First Amendment using our rights of a free press, and to amplify the voices of underrepresented individuals including Black, Indigenous, persons of color, and the LGBTQIA+ community. Our team is committed to seeking equality for all and holding those in power accountable. The easiest way to support Malcontent News is to bookmark our website at malcontentnews.com, like and follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and in the Google News app. To provide financial support, you can become a patron, make a one-time donation through Venmo, or link your Twitch account to your Amazon Prime account and use your free subscription to subscribe to Malcontent News. Thank you for supporting independent journalism and for being a malcontent.
You fit the profile. You're the malcontent. Nobody wants to hear the nonsensical ravings of a loudmouth malcontent.
Fuck you! You are the biggest hypocrite on the face of the planet.
I say that you're a terrible reporter. That's what I say.